price? Is it as simple as back to normal is 65 and re-escalation is 105 and here we are in the middle because we don't really know which way it is? Or is this now kind of, a proper reflection of the supply-demand equilibrium at the moment?
So the price should reflect two things. One is the supply-demand, and the other is how much spare capacity do I have in both gasoline and diesel products as well as oil. We're okay on the supply-demand-ish. We're still low on the supply side, which is why we're drawing. Remember, we're at 81, but we're depleting reserves. This is not a supply-demand. It's a demand that is remaining high, a supply that is really low, and the government is issuing the extra supply. And as that tool gets reduced, it's harder to do. The market is treating the SPR as though that's production. It's not production. It's not renewable. It's not sustainable. So the price is, in my book, not reflecting reality. Traders are trading right now the price based on headlines out of Washington. The president said, war is over, straits open. Great, let's reduce the price. But that's not reality.
But the demand destruction part of the story, what is China's role in all of this, now and in the future?
So China has proven that their actions since 2011, when they started, 2012, started building an SPR, which originally was supposed to be 500 million barrels, went to 1.4 billion barrels. They've proven a massively effective function of balancing market. They reduced their imports by 4.5 to 5 million barrels. That was a big deal. But don't believe the people out of the government that are saying, oh, SPR can go to 70 million barrels. It's nonsense. Unless you want to say, I will take it to the point of never resurrecting it and we will never have it again. And that's why I said below 300 million, which where we are now,
I've quoted your number,
is not that we can't do it, but it slows the flow and puts us in danger. And if one hurricane in Florida or in Louisiana, and we're really screwed because then we don't have Vegas or Trisha.
Renewables are transforming the grid, but they can't do it alone. We need an integrated approach, which means that generation, storage, infrastructure, and power management must work together as one.
Term to help justify a stock that's done pretty well this year.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. That is Bloomberg's Ryan Glasgow for us. Coming up, shares of the parent of Coach and Kate Spade, Tapestry, falling on a disappointing outlook. That's next. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
Warning Iran may ramp up its aggression as we get closer to the midterms, while President Trump insists the U.S. blockade on the Strait is holding. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst joins us from Tel Aviv with the details. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey, Brian, good morning. With no diplomatic breakthrough, tension remains high across the Middle East. There are still major questions about the Strait of Hormuz and if a deal can be reached to open this critical waterway. We do know the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, an Iranian government agency, said Wednesday claims and repeated posts by U.S. officials that the Strait of Hormuz is no longer blocked do not change the reality. The Strait of Hormuz remains blocked and will not be reopened until Iran's conditions are accepted. This came after President Trump posted yesterday on Truth Social, saying in part the USA has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. Our naval blockade is being called by everyone a wall of steel, and there is nothing Iran can do about it. Still less than 10% of the average number of pre-war vessels are passing through the strait, as some analysts warn of possible escalation before a solution is found.
You see the midterms coming. My gut feel is that they're likely going to get more aggressive because they don't believe the president will do much prior to the midterms in terms of military reaction.
He's already said he's low-key. He said that in the interview.
But here's the fact is, they have miscalculated with him time and time again. We have more capability in the region now than we had on February 28th, and it all is ready.
The focus on Iran comes as we're also tracking developments between Israel and Lebanon. Talks are set to resume in September in Rome, aimed at normalizing ties between the two countries and disarming Hezbollah. Still, details have to be worked out about the proposed security zones.
Under no circumstances to be retreat, not in Lebanon, not in Syria, not in Gaza, from the security zones. The lesson of October 7th is that we protect the residents by having the IDF present in these places and defending them.
Israel is still carrying out limited strikes in both Lebanon and Gaza. On Wednesday, a senior Hamas commander was killed in one of those strikes. Brian?
So, Trey, when we look at the situation right now, I thought General Keane brought up another great point last night. He said that the biggest surprise to the Iranians was when they hit the Gulf states called us up at least 3 times and asked us not to hit back. And we've listened. That's really was probably holding the president back down. Predominantly, it's the Gulf states saying, we get hit when you hit them, so please don't hit them. At one point, that's where we're going to have to make a decision, correct?
Absolutely. They have to make a major decision, and this is part of the president's calculation. He has said time and time again, the goal here is to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. And ultimately, this is going to be a tiered approach. They have to deal with the Strait of Hormuz first, and then ultimately enter into more detailed discussions about Iran's nuclear program. But as it relates to these Gulf countries, there is real concern about the escalation ladder and what happens if major strikes resume against Iran. Because the Iranians still have pieces on this chessboard. You know, their navy is at the bottom of the sea. Much of their missile arsenal was taken out in U.S. and Israeli strikes during Operation Epic Fury, but they still have many of these shorter-range missiles and drones that can threaten energy infrastructure in the Gulf. And that is part of the reason you have countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE asking the president to exhaust all diplomatic opportunities before returning to combat operations. But tension, again, remains high across the region because at this moment, the Iranians are mocking what the Trump administration is saying about the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, they are, Trey. And General Keane also spoke last night about this is ultimately coming down to a battle of wills. And it seems that nothing has changed insofar as the IRGC and General Ahmad Vahidi not bending that will, no matter how bad the Iranian people suffer economically and otherwise. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
The short answer is no, and the Iranians did miscalculate on the president's patience. They thought, ultimately, according to reports, that he would want to wrap up this situation more quickly out of concern of events in the United States. But what's happening right now is quite interesting. There is an immense amount of economic pressure on the Iranian regime as we speak. The U.S. naval blockade is costing the Iranians hundreds of millions of dollars each and every day. They've had to slash their crude oil extraction rate. They are decreasing their domestic exports, and inflation is rising rapidly inside of Iran. And so each and every day, the U.S. military pressure in the region is consistent. There are still more than 50,000 U.S. soldiers in the region, aircraft carriers, destroyers, and refuelers prepared if military operations do resume. But it's the economic pressure that the Iranians are starting to really feel, according to intelligence officials that we've talked to in the region. And the president has shared a few graphs of this, looking at the inflation inside of Iran. Fox News is told that the issue is even worse than is being publicly described, because the Iranians are out of options in terms of paying the IRGC officials and soldiers on the ground. In terms of keeping their people happy, the domestic pressure is rising on the regime. And that's part of the calculation here for President Trump. He maintains all options on the table. But if General Keane is correct here in the possibility that the Iranians escalate militarily, the president has been very clear in the conversations and interviews he has conducted about the situation in Iran. He is willing to escalate in order to de-escalate. And that is a very real possibility in the weeks and months ahead.
Hey, Trey, thank you so much.
Thanks, Trey.
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All these videos for free. I'm here to try to improve your health and also to understand what is happening in the news so you can benefit financially, or at least you can mitigate some of the risks. Thank you for joining. Please share the links and ask your social media to follow me. I greatly appreciate it. The markets are open in New York, so let's go over the data here, and I'll give you my opinion on what's going on. The S&P 500 is trading at 7,794. I have a year-end target. That means at the end of December that the S&P 500 could be at 7,800, maybe even 8,000. But I'm a little concerned that it's a little too bubbly. So because of that, what I did was this, I moved approximately 7% in cash just to be prepared if there is a downturn at the end of the year or in between now and the end of the year or even Q1 of next year. I'm concerned about what is starting to transpire economically and geopolitically that may cause consternation within the markets, and there may be a sell-off. Now, it might not materialize, but it's better to be prudent. Now, if you are invested in the S&P 500, stay invested in the S&P 500 or broad index, but you may want to put a little bit in cash and just wait. So you're riding it up if it continues to go up, but you have some cash on hand. If it does go down, you can dollar cost average. Now, some of the resistance levels, we have a near-term resistance level at 7,800. It may break it, but I suspect that some traders are going to fade it and try to push it down below 7,800. There's a support level at 7,600. There's a very strong support level at 7,000. If I said, yeah, 7,000, very strong support level because of the fib sequence. There's also a support level of 7,200. So those are your targets. If the S&P 500 starts to sell off, you want to go, well, okay, let it break at 7,600. If it goes to 7,200, so 7,200, buy. It goes to 7,000, buy. And that way, that's the reason why you want to have some cash on hand to be able to do that. If you haven't participated in the market and you're just kind of waiting, you might want to wait until the fade happens sometime this year or early next year. All right. So, but if you haven't been paying attention, then you may not have been able to catch the wave that's been going on. Right now, it is trading at 7,800, so it's just right at that level. So we'll see if it breaks. It probably will break intraday, and I wouldn't be surprised that it comes down at the end. But what is bolstering up the market today is the PPI numbers that came in. They show controlled, let's not say controlled, but steady inflation numbers. So if it's steady, then now traders are going, you know what, maybe the Federal Reserve won't raise rates. Maybe they'll stay at the current rate or maybe go down because they're worried about the job market. So this is a trader's market where it's bolstering it up. I would not be surprised that a lot of institutions are starting to nibble back into the tech sector. For ones that have been paying attention, SSG is a ETF to short semiconductors. So if the semiconductor industry and the tech industry starts to go down, SSG goes up. Right now it's at 11.11. So it's been trending down. So the new trading range is going to be at around 11 to about 12. It was 1150 to 1250. So I wouldn't be surprised that today, because of the uptick in broader indexes, that you might see SSG break 11 and start trading at a 10 handle. But that doesn't mean that there's not an AI bubble. See, because the AI bubble hasn't really fully deflated, there was sell-off last month in the tech sector and in AI stocks and NVIDIA. But there's now a new round of circular financing. There are new companies coming in to help with debt for NVIDIA. And it's just pumping up the AI bubble. See, what happened was the AI bubble increased before July. Then during July, it started to deflate. And now it's going back into an inflation aspect for this AI bubble. This is the reason why I'm a little concerned with the broader index, that when the AI bubble does deflate fast or just bursts, that you have some cash on hand to be able to benefit from the downturn and then be able to reinvest. This is the reason why it's important to have a little bit of cash on hand. But right now, at this moment in time, tech is starting to going up, and that bubble, that AI bubble is starting to inflate, and Goldman Sachs is helping, BlackRock's helping, and they're tied to ETFs. They're tied to leveraged ETFs with some of these stocks like NVIDIA or sector ETFs. Goldman Sachs just purchased another company that has a swath of ETFs. So what's happening here is that they're investing, they're benefiting from underwriting with the debt and helping NVIDIA. They have ETFs that are being traded, they're making money. And when things go bad, their trading floor at Goldman Sachs is going to benefit too, because they're going to be starting to short. So you have part of the money that's actually shorting the customer. And then you have another part of Goldman Sachs that's longing the customer by issuing debt. So people need to like sit back and like go, there are some games that are being played here that big money is going to make even more big money on the up and the down for this AI bubble and burst. So just be careful. I've seen this rodeo before, and you have to be careful. The VIX index is trading at 1467. There should be a spike to 20 by the end of this month. Third week, fourth week of August, it should happen. I would be surprised if it doesn't. If it doesn't, then there's a higher probability that it's going to happen in the first week or second week of September. Now, what have I been saying for a year? September 11th is going to be a time where there's a curse that starts. Economically, geopolitically, militarily, with health, with agriculture, with the climate. Lots of bad things are going to be happening. What have you been hearing in the news lately? A lot of pathogenic issues, cyclospora, legionnaires, Ebola. I mean, lots of things are happening. Oh, there's a news article now that AI can generate a virus. I told you this years ago that this could happen. It's relatively easy. You can do it. You can do it in many different ways, but one way is just using AlphaFold and HadDoc, and you can generate the proteins that would dock to a certain receptor. And then you just go, because you know what the sequence of the protein is, you know what the RNA and the DNA is to make that protein, and depending on what kind of vector you use, depends on if you're going to, use a DNA version or an RNA version. And you can easily package it in a viral vector. It's very easy. This is undergrad shit. This is not like high-end Ph.D. stuff. Undergrad could do this. So the point that I'm making here is there's a lot of bad stuff that is starting to emerge. 9/11, gotta pay attention. Gotta pay attention. Something bad's coming. We just heard from Troy, not Troy, Trey Gowdy. Not Trey, what the hell is his name? Trey Yangst. Trey Yangst just stated that there isn't really a solution taking place in the Middle East yet. So this is going to flare up again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again. When's Trump going to solve the problem? Him just walking away from it isn't going to solve it. So this is probably going to become more kinetic. But we have a munition problem, and we have midterm election issue. And there's lots of problems going on here. So you can see that all of these things are emerging. Okay. So I suspect that VIX could spike at the end of this month or the beginning of next month. Euro is trading at 115 stable. Japanese yen is trading at 159. It's starting to weaken a little bit after that intervention with the Federal Reserve and the BOJ. It went down to like about 156. Japan wants the yen to strengthen, but the market is saying otherwise, and it's starting to weaken again. Bitcoin is trading below 64,000. SpaceX is trading at 142. So, watch that for what happens, especially when the lockout starts to end. Natural gas is trading at 2.741. I am longing natural gas and shorting it. I have a large short position and a hedged smaller leg long position for natural gas. And I have a short position for oil. Oil's trading at 80.22, and it's testing its support level of 79.62. It went up to about 83 in the 83 handle, and now it's starting to drift down. So right now, the energy markets are seeing, and it's going to start to drift down, the cost. But who knows? Usually when energy starts to be cheap, Trump decides to say something or do something, energy goes up. Once it goes up too high, he says, oh, we're in negotiations, and it starts to go back down. Kind of similar theme that was going on with tariffs. And Gush, which is a leveraged ETF to long energy companies, especially in oil exploration, that's trading at 38.98. And DRIP, which is the inverse, which is to short them, that's trading at 40.07. There's a trend since the open of Gush going down and a trend of DRIP going up. Now that coincides with oil going down. So right now the correlation for Gush, which is a long ETF for energy, is negatively correlated to the oil price. I'm sorry, not negatively correlated, positively correlated. Gush is trading in sync with oil, but it is trading right now inversely related to the current broad index. So Gush is trading down, S&P is trading up. Oil's trading down, Gush is trading down. But that's not always the case. That is not always the case. The correlations do change. Volatility, here's the magic sauce of finance. Dr. Paul Cottrell, what is the big secret of finance? The big secret of finance is all the textbooks don't mean anything. What matters is to realize that correlations to different assets and the volatility of the price change. It's not constant. So you can have something that you think is correlated and it goes negatively correlated, or less correlated, or non-correlated. It moves. It's like a wave. Trading and investing is more like surfing. When you surf into the ocean, do you calculate the physics of the wave? No, of course not. You just have to adjust. Very similar. Volatility and correlation change. They are not constant. And this is why most economists always get it wrong. This is why a lot of people that are commentators in the market get it wrong. It's that simple. Things change. Price, volatility, and correlation to other assets change over time. That's the big secret. Okay, with that, let's go to want to cover the wholesale price. So this is the PPI. Let's listen into the data that came out just before the open.
You, just you, Building your app on base 44. Describe it. And
Rick Santelli standing by at the CAB in Chicago. He's going to have those numbers for us. Hi, Rick.
Yes, good morning. We're waiting the wholesale version of inflation and initial continuing claims. Initial claims hitting the wires, 209,000. That's a little bit elevated from the slightly over 200,000 we were expecting. 209,000, believe it or not, will be the highest since the first week in July when it was 217. It equals where we were on the second week of July, exactly at 209,000. If we look at continuing claims, coming in a little lower than expected, 1,777,000. How does that compare? Well, last month, a slight revision that above 1.8 million now goes back below. So now we have the string of 1.7s continuing. Now the inflation numbers. Headline number, final demand month over month expected up 0.2, comes in lower. Only goose egg, 0. That would be the highest rate of inflation because last month was negative since it was up 0.6 in May. So better than expected there. And as I said, minus 0.3 last month now becomes minus 0.1. Let's strip out food and energy. Comes out up 0.2, 1/10 lighter than expectation. Strip out food, energy, and trade. This one's a little warmer. We're expecting up 0.3. It comes up 0.4. That would be the highest since it was up 0.8 in May. Now let's look at the year-over-year numbers, shall we? Year-over-year final demand headline 4.7, 0.2 less than expected, and in the rearview mirror 5.5. So a big sequential drop. 4.7 will be the lowest since it was March when we were at 4.3. Ex food and energy year over year expected to be 4.1, comes in a little warmer at 4.2, but still a 0.5% less than 4.7 in the rear view mirror. And finally, ex food, ex energy, ex trade, expecting 4.6, 1/10 out at 4.7, and in the rear view mirror 5.1 becomes 5%, so 0.3 sequentially lower. 4.7 actually would be the lowest since 4.4 in April. So we see that these numbers are mostly better than expected, sequentially definitely better than expected. A couple had a 1/10 or 2 a little bit warmer than expected. We're still hovering right around 467 in a 10-year, 523 in the 30-year.
What is interesting with the Treasury market for the 10-year, the price of the bond of the Treasury is going up. So that's because the Fed most likely is not going to raise rates and PPI came lower. So the whole yield curve is slightly shifting a little bit downward, but still it's elevated in relative terms from post-Lehman epoch. We're at 4.6 and we're at 4.672 for the yield. And we're at 5.236 for the 30-year yield. Well, that's pretty elevated post-Lehman. But if you look at pre-Lehman, we're actually moving towards a pre-Lehman environment in terms of the yield curve. And so this may be, even though there's inflation and problems with debt, there may be another variable that's involved here, and that is the natural progression to go to a pre-Lehman epoch in terms of the yield curve. What does that all mean, Dr. Cottrell? It means that mortgages are not going to be cheap. They're just going to get more expensive. And that the easy money that came from Lehman crash is starting to end.
Per year, it's not a benchmark, but we do have 25 billion of those 30-year bonds hitting the wires by the Treasury at 1 o'clock Eastern. Mike and the gang, back to you.
Okay, so the as you can see on the dashboard, the S&P 500 is trading at 7,806. So we broke that resistance level, but it's hovering there. It's at 7,807. It could go down. You can see that it kind of looks like it's lost a little bit of momentum. It's kind of petering. VIX very stable. So this could go to 7,820. I wouldn't be surprised, but it may drop down intraday. So just pay attention to that. And also pay attention to CL on the dashboard. That's the future for oil. It's testing that support level of 79.62. Right now it's trading at 80.36. If it breaks that 79.62 and stays there at the close of today, that will be a very positive sign of energy going down and somewhat a stable market condition for the S&P 500 to continually to rally for the next few days. We'll see. We'll see. Anything can happen. That's why we do this show. Okay, let's play CNN. They're talking about the Iran war and U.S. sailors trying to jump ship during record-long deployment. So they always have to come up with something negative. But before we do, please help support the work that I do. All these videos for free. It takes a bit of time out of my day to be able to do these shows. So please help support the work that I do by getting the great products that I offer. Everything that I offer is very high quality, effective, and I use. So Zeolite, it soaks up heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. You can take this every day, 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water, stay away from processed foods, drink the filtered water, clean the environment in your home. If you need cleaning supplies or paints, those types of chemicals, then put it in a double layer container. That way it doesn't degas. You're not breathing them in at small concentrations. A lot of people don't know this. If you have a can of paint in your garage and it's closed, guess what? If you actually analyze the air in your garage, you have paint molecules floating in very low concentrations that you're breathing in. Same thing with cleaning supplies in your home. So if you really want to protect your endocrine system and your immune system, you want to double layer cleaning supplies and other things that you need for your home that you shouldn't be breathing in all the time. Zeolite will bind to those heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. So take 3 small drops, drink the filtered water, clean your environment, and voila, your immune system and your endocrine system work better. And when they work better, you age slower. Good night formula. Good night formula has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower to allow you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep so you can consolidate your memory, detoxify your central nervous system, and to be well rested. When you do this regularly, you are slowing down the aging process and improving your brain function. Yes, sleeping properly, getting those 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep will help with your memory. And when you're detoxifying that central nervous system, you're going to be reducing that inflammation. You're going to be reducing the chances of building up plaques, amyloidosis. When you have good sleep and you have a proper diet and exercise, proper supplementation, you are reducing the chances of early onset of dementia. It's really simple. Just people don't do it. If you're 40 years of age or older, take vitamin B complex. Why? Vitamin B complex, the first 4 B vitamins, helps with the electron transport chain within your mitochondria so you have more ATP. That means you have more energy. It also helps to improve your cellular metabolism. So if your cells are working better, your tissues are working better. If your tissues are working better, then your organ systems are working better. Don't you think that your overall body will be in homeostasis? The answer is yes. And vitamin B complex has vitamin B12 that help to protect your neurons. Once again, protecting neurons is super important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, click the link in the description, go to my website, purchase the products, save some money by using discount 5. You get $5 off any order. You can use that as many times as you want. But please help support the work that I do. All right, let's listen into this clip from CNN.
I got a secret. I've been using granola.
What is granola?
So it's an ad notepad. If you want to take notes during the meeting, granola can.
Which spoke to the wife of one stress on the ship. This is according to new reporting from the military. Today, that is a record. Out front now, Natalie Olivero. She is a shocking new report that multiple sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln have tried to jump overboard amid poor conditions and mental stress on the ship. This is according to new reporting from the Military Times, which spoke to the wife of one of those sailors, who says she's spoken to her husband only a handful of times since he tried to jump. He is now on medical hold. The Military Times is also reporting severe food shortages on board, and that sailors are running out of just basic needs, toothpaste, deodorant, soap. This crew has been at sea for 9 months amid Trump's war in Iran. That includes 250 consecutive days without setting foot on land. 250 consecutive days. That is a record. Out front now, Natalie Olivero. She is a Military Times journalist who broke the story, and she is also a Navy veteran. Natalie, I appreciate your time. I mean, the details you have in this story are really stunning. I mean, my jaw drops. You know, we're talking about the USS Abraham Lincoln, and you're talking about things that I think people struggle to understand are happening in the U.S. military. You've spoken directly with some of these families, and you're reporting on incidents involving sailors apparently trying to jump overboard. You spoke to the wife of one of them, I know, and her husband served in the Navy for more than a dozen years, 13 years. So what have you learned?
Thanks for having me, Erin, and for covering this story. Speaking with Ms. Saloma, she is extremely worried and concerned about how her husband is actually doing, and until she can be in front of him and see him with her own eyes, she's not really going to be able to answer that question. And facing the stresses that every military spouse faces when theirs is deployed is being a solo parent at home with 3 little kids. So not being able to have answers or direction is really challenging right now for her especially.
So, you know, look, these incidents are very disturbing. I mean, what would drive someone to be at a point where they would be willing to do that, obviously, is distressing to consider. But the families of sailors aboard the Lincoln are telling you about incidents like this. They're also telling you about some of these other truly stunning details, that the sailors are often hungry because there isn't enough food, that basic supplies, toothpaste, deodorant, aren't easy to get. Now, back in April, you know, and this has been going on a long time, we talk about this ship 250 days in a row without setting foot on land, a record. So this has been going on a long time. In April, Secretary Hagseth dismissed reports about inadequate food. He said it was fake news. So what's the reaction to from the families that you're speaking to? They don't get to talk to their loved ones on board that ship that often. What's their reaction when the Defense Secretary calls this all fake news?
Confusion, hurt, lack of understanding. They're constantly seeking some kind of reassurance or information. There's a lot of conflicting reports, a lot of different information, especially on social media, within different groups and small community pages. Those are the pages where organic conversations and relationships exist. Those aren't deep fakes or AI dupes being created. These are where families go to communicate. This is a lifeline for families who really never receive an instruction manual on how to handle your time when your loved one's deployed. So families are feeling left in the dark, and all families are agreeing that it is absolutely unacceptable and unthinkable to imagine.
Well, it's unthinkable, I think, for any American to hear this reporting, frankly, and deeply disturbing to imagine that sailors who are serving this country, going 250 days without setting foot on land, 9-month deployment, would have food shortages or it's upsetting. So we reached out to the Navy, Natalie, about your report, and they responded in a statement, and they said, quote, "We have not observed an increase in suicidal ideations or attempts aboard the ship. We are not experiencing an uptick in mental health issues aboard Abraham Lincoln." I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to that.
My first question to that is an increase from what baseline? An increase, no increase from when? What does that measurement window look like? We did request deck logs and multiple FOIAs from the Navy, so hopefully we'll get those back and can review them independently. But until we do, all we have is our firsthand reporting and accounts from these family members who are experiencing this and living it day after day.
We've been hearing Donald Trump say the Strait of Hormuz is open. Everything is open, okay, which we know is not true to the extent he's implying. The USS Abraham Lincoln has been a part of that mission, and we are hearing these reports from on board. A congressman tweeted out a report saying that basically 5,000 sailors are on board. They're on month 9 of what was supposed to be a 7-month deployment, and the conditions are horrendous. Moldy showers, broken toilets, no hot water for weeks, meals that were down to half a cup of rice and 2 tortillas, stores out of deodorant, toothpaste, all this stuff. The Navy is saying, look, we haven't seen anything. Literally, their statement is, we have not observed an increase in suicidal ideations, and that they're taking it seriously. But I feel like this is not a random rumor. Like, how could things get to this point?
Every day, you may have this that occurs kind of generally in the Navy, but I think it is clear this is a ramp up. Look, when I went to war,
investigation. Do you think there should be an
investigation? 100%, yeah. When I went to war, as an Air Force pilot, my deployments were 3 months because we would time out. We could only fly so much. But if you got extended even a week, it was like a blow to morale. Really, I'd be there and it's like, hey, you can't leave this Saturday. It's going to have to be next Saturday. It's like, oh, and I wasn't even married. These guys, and men and women, having been extended multiple times, that is a huge blow to morale. And then if the Navy, which they aren't, giving them an end date, saying we're going to be out of here in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then on the food side, fresh fruit, stuff like that, that has to be taken out by ship out into the middle of this dangerous area. So it's difficult to get it out there. It's difficult to get it out there fresh. If you do get fresh fruit, you have to eat it pretty quickly because you can't keep it on board. And it just creates.
And you're talking fresh fruit. I mean, at this point, I don't know if there's like an MRE or something. Right. You're talking a cup of rice, and the doctor's saying people are going to start losing their minds.
Yeah.
I think the other reason we care about this is because the Navy is being asked to sustain a massive mission, and do we have the ability to do that? And is this a red flag?
Yeah, this is a huge red flag. I mean, and plus, again, the administration is saying we're going to sustain this closure of the strait, which is totally open, that we control. We're going to sustain that indefinitely until Iran relents. How long is that going to be? We just had an aircraft carrier in the Caribbean, by the way, for whatever reason. So, look, I'm not going to question where the Navy's sending these assets, but if we're going to maintain a blockade there, there's going to be some things that give.
Joining me now is Massachusetts Democratic Congressman Seth Moulton, a Marine Corps veteran who served 4 tours in Iraq. He also sits on the Armed Services Committee, and he is running for Senate. Congressman, thank you for being with us. And what was your reaction when you heard these accounts of sailors attempting to go overboard?
I mean, it's horrific, but sadly, I'm not surprised. I mean, we have a president, a commander-in-chief, who's made fun of troops for mental health issues. We have a Secretary of Defense who's more focused on testosterone tests than actually keeping our troops alive. But the piece that I think we don't talk about enough is that our troops can do extraordinary things. And I've had deployments to Iraq that were longer than 9 months. But you gotta believe in the mission. And nobody can participate in this Iran war. It's been a total failure. It's actually backfired. It's done more to empower Iran, which now controls the world economy, which they've never done before in their history. It's really hard to be excited about that mission. There's no one who believes in it right now. And that's got to be one of the toughest tolls on our troops.
You heard the Navy, they tell us that they aren't seeing an uptick of mental health issues on the USS Lincoln. And they're saying they have plenty of mental health resources available. Listen, you're on the Armed Services Committee. Is that statement good enough for you?
Absolutely not, and we will be conducting an investigation to get to the bottom of this. 0 suicides is the only acceptable number. And I'm speaking not just as a veteran, but as the co-author of 988, the National Mental Health Hotline, a service that I made sure was available to troops, even troops overseas. It's pretty obvious, though, that these troops are not getting the mental health support that they need, and it's our job in Congress to get to the bottom of that.
I think that Hegseth and General Kane need to speak to the American public and give in detail what is going on. Is there a problem? Is there not a problem? If there is a problem, how are you fixing it? I don't know if there is a problem or not. Most people wouldn't know because they don't have insider information. So the government needs to be more transparent. This is a problem that I have with Pete Hegseth. In general, I'm glad that he's the war secretary. But Hegseth has a tendency to obfuscate. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. You can get it in avocado, extra virgin olive oil, and MCT coconut oil. You can get it in a 2-ounce, a 4-ounce, or an 8-ounce configuration. It is cheaper to get the higher ounce configuration per ounce. It's cheaper per ounce. C60, you take a teaspoon a day. It's 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. They'll soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation in your cell and your tissues, reduce stress in those cells and tissues, so they'll perform better. Your immune system will perform better. Your endocrine system will perform better. Your cardiovascular system will perform better by soaking up free radicals and reducing plaque formation. By bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, the neurons are healthier, producing energy and producing those neurotransmitters to provide that positive neuroplasticity. So you're thinking faster, you have better memory. And C60 also helps the basal layer for your skin. So the new skin cells that are being produced are healthier. This stacks really well with resveratrol, especially for the basal layer for the skin. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. I've been doing this protocol for over 10 years, every day. It's a great way to also soak up those free radicals after a workout, so you're recovering quicker. You'll notice that you recover quicker after a workout. So it's really important to take a teaspoon a day, every day, to slow down the aging process, and do a before and after picture for a year. And you'll notice that you're healthier, especially if you take the other supplements because they're synergistic. Another great supplement that I have is olive leaf extract, dual purpose. So to save some money, purchase products that give you multiple benefits. Olive leaf extract brings down inflammation and helps to control your lipid profile. That means that you're helping to control and lower your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. When you do that, you have less plaque formation, so it's going to help with your cardiovascular system. By bringing down that inflammation, you're also able to reduce those pro-inflammatory cytokines. Your anti-inflammatory cytokines will start to go up, and your immune system will perform better. Because if you have chronic inflammation, if you're chronically stressed, if you have high cortisol levels all the time, your tissues start to erode, you age faster, and your immune system goes down. You don't want that. You want to reverse all that. So if you just follow my advice, it works. Please go to my store, get the olive leaf extract. And another great supplement to help with your pancreatic health is taking the digestive enzyme complex. This will help to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. It'll allow you to absorb your nutrients easier, reduces the stress on your digestive system, and it also has bromelain. And bromelain not only breaks up protein, but it also helps to break up clots. So it's dual purpose. So please go to my store and get the digestive enzyme complex. And the proteolytic enzymes in here also break up glycoproteins, which is super important during the cold season. Most of the products that I have a dual function. So you purchase them and you get added benefits. So please go to my store, get the great supplements, use discount 5, and you get $5 off. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. You just do what I do, and you'll slow down the aging process and get healthy. All right, let's listen into MS Now about the same issue that CNN just covered. See how they're covering it.
There are disturbing new reports this morning about mental health and troop morale aboard the USS Lincoln in the Middle East. The aircraft carrier beat the modern-day record for most continuous days at sea without a port call. Families of sailors are telling MS Now they're worried about shortages of food and hygiene products, moldy showers, toilets that do not work, and broken laundry facilities. They say in a fiery town hall with Navy leaders last week, concerns were raised about the sailors' mental health and exhaustion. The military news outlet Stars and Stripes interviewed active duty sailors and family members who described at least one instance where a crew member had to be stopped from jumping.
What is problematic about the U.S. military is that it's designed to be quick, very similar to Blitzkrieg. Now, the whole concept of Blitzkrieg actually goes all the way back to World War I, not World War II. The Germans, when they were about to invade France, they had better organizational processes and could move the troops along the railroad line and get to the front quicker. And Germans' thought process is that if you can get there quick, you'll be able to take land and you'll be able to win. And it almost worked. But then they got bogged down, and then trench warfare started to take hold, and we know the story about trench warfare for World War I. Then fast forward to World War II. Germany, powerhouse in industry, decides to rearm. And they design machinery and weaponry with great sophistication. You know, very tight tolerances, and the Panzer tanks were way better than the Sherman tanks, but we could make them faster. The United States could make them faster, even though the tanks that we were making were subpar. Fast forward to today. The weaponry we have is state-of-the-art. No one makes it better. But it's costly, takes a lot of time to make them, and we don't have the stamina. The weapon systems that our Pentagon has been promoting, going all the way back to the Gulf War of 1991, it's based on the premise that we win quick. And we've lost our edge that we had in World War II. Being able to make a lot of machinery quickly and get it to the battlefield. So we don't have a system that has the stamina that we need. And we're starting to see it break down. We're seeing it break down because of lack of munitions. It takes too long to rearm and restock those munitions. And when things are going wrong, these longer deployments, there's stress, the human stress, and also stress on the equipment. It's a big problem. It's a big, big problem. We have set up our military apparatus to win quick. Fire from remote, up in the sky. But how good are we actually on a ground offensive? It's questionable. It truly is questionable. And then you add in the new phase of warfare, and that's drones. The drone technologies, defensive and offensive capabilities. We need to take a lesson learned from what went wrong with the Germans in World War I and World War II. They thought Blitzkrieg was their secret sauce. And our Pentagon thinks the same thing. It's a bad idea.
The Navy released a statement saying in part, quote, "We have not observed an increase in suicidal ideations aboard the ship. We take every service member's well-being seriously and have medical and mental health professionals available to assess and address concerns as they arise." Joining me now, Priya Sridhar, Pentagon reporter for MS Now. Kevin and Peter are still with us too. Priya, I'm going to start with you because you've been covering this story for days now. These concerns, these allegations, they are incredibly disturbing. Is anything being done about them at all?
Yeah, Antonia, I've been reporting about this over the last week or so, and the family members really wanted to raise the alarm bells that this record deployment is really taking a toll on their loved ones' mental health, and that they're concerned that this exhaustion with these long 14 to 16-hour shifts with very little days off could lead to deadly accidents. And so there was an emergency town hall at Naval Air Station North Island in San Diego last Thursday evening with Acting Secretary of the Navy Hung Kao, where family members confronted him about their concerns, and they essentially were demanding answers about when the Lincoln could come home, or when there could be relief, as in another aircraft carrier could be sent into that area to relieve the Lincoln. And he basically told family members that they're planning on sending the USS Theodore Roosevelt, another aircraft carrier, in that direction, but he wasn't able to give them a definitive timeline on when that could happen or when the Lincoln is going to come home. And they also asked questions about these reports of a sailor going overboard. And he basically said to them that that sailor was back on the ship and that he was quote unquote fine. That comment was met with extreme anger by the audience, where they said he is not fine. So as you heard from the Navy right there, they're claiming that there's no uptick in suicidal ideations on the ship, but we're hearing a very different story from the family members themselves, Antonia.
Yeah, very, very different stories. Hard to imagine being told somebody's just fine after a description like the one that you laid out there. The thing is, Peter, the allegations about what's been unfolding on the ship, they go all the way back to April. Reports of food shortages.
We wouldn't have this problem if Trump actually put ground troops in the theater in the third or fourth week of the start of this war. Now, would we have had casualties? Probably around 3,000 to take the smaller islands north of the strait? Yeah. But the thing is that we would have been able to control the situation a lot better than what's happening right now. See, Trump's failing. But let's forget about Trump failing. Let's forget about the whole blitzkrieg concept with warfare. There's a curse coming. If Trump doesn't fix this, I'm 100% sure of this. 100% sure. If Trump does not win in Iran definitively, where the IRGC is destroyed and the theocratic regime in Iran is eliminated, by 9/11, 2026, there's a curse coming. And it doesn't matter if Trump tries to fix it after. The curse will initiate. And that curse around the world is going to last for 2 years. That means economically, geopolitically, domestic policy and consternations between the conservatives and the liberals in the United States, our health, food supplies, all these things are going to be a problem. All of them. And you can almost sense it by just looking at the news, and all of these different variables are starting to bubble up. Now, in a complex system, you would think, well, if there's just a little bit of a movement in some variable, that maybe that's just a local issue. But sometimes things start to move around and they affect other things, and there's connections between these variables. And they can amplify, or sometimes they can be diminished when they interact. Kind of like a wave. One wave interacting with another wave can amplify it, or it can diminish the wave. So in these complex systems that we call, modern society, we may be getting an amplification effect. during this time period that I call the curse. Now, we go over it in detail with my shows with John Oak, but I've been saying this for more than a year. Trump keeps on failing with the very thing that he was supposed to do. Why do you think that he wasn't killed in Butler, Pennsylvania? Why do you think he was given a blessing to stay alive? To give you no tips, no taxes on tips? You think God cares about your taxes on tips? Why do you think he was blessed not being assassinated? To not put trans men in women's sports? I don't think God cares about that either. Do you think that God didn't have Trump get assassinated to do a ballroom at the White House? No, I don't think God cares about that either. There's something biblical happening in the Middle East. And if Trump doesn't do what he's supposed to do, everything that was a little bit of a hint of a blessing, the economic freedom that we have, and the prosperity, that's a blessing, but it can be taken away too. When we have leaders that can't get the job done. That's what's going to happen. And it's right now, it is 8:13. By 9/11/2026, if Trump doesn't solve the problem, there's a curse coming. And I'm 100% sure of this. Stupid. And you can see it. The military is starting to call, our military is starting to unravel in the periphery. Now, what happens if a mistake happens? And let's say there is a missile that hits one of the ships, and the ships, heaven forbid, are sunk or incapacitated. It may take years to fix or replace. Then where will we be? Because Trump wasn't willing to do a ground offensive in the third week. There's a reason why Trump wasn't, there's a reason why there was a blessing to prevent him from being assassinated. But will he actually think through the process and say that, he's supposed to do something here, something big, not something little, like tax reform or Doge policies? That's chicken shit. What's big is like knocking out Iran. What's big is making sure that China doesn't take Taiwan and we don't lose our hegemonic power in the Pacific. There was a news announcement last night on NHK. Putin is starting to kind of like rumble about the Kirk Islands around northern Japan. Now Japan says it's theirs. Russia wants them. Well, are we going to have a Asian theater with Russia now? How is the United States going to handle that when we have sailors supposedly, reportedly, having issues? I don't know if it's true or not. It might be, it might not be. I don't know. I suspect that there is a problem. How bad is the problem? I don't know. But you can see that the curse is emerging. You can see it happening. The strategic reserve for oil are diminished. What happens when a big emergency, another emergency happens? You're going to be able to solve that problem? If the world goes to World War III, are we going to really be able to finance the debt like we did in World War II? Look at the infighting that's taking place between the conservatives and the ultra-liberals, and with the DSA and their communist bullshit. It's metastasizing. Madani is metastasizing around the country. There's another. We've been blessed with capitalism. We've been blessed with peace and prosperity and upward mobility. Yes, we have our problems, but if you really take your VHS tape and rewind it for every decade since 1920s, every generation has been complaining about the same stuff. Healthcare, inflation, blah, 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 blah. But the United States has been blessed for a long time. Do we deserve it? The rubber meets the road now. The proof is now. Do you deserve it or not? And if the country fails this test, we are not going to have the prosperity that we've had for decades or centuries. Oh, America first pacifists don't want to get involved. Still think you'll be blessed by having that mentality? Of course not. There's an evil in the Middle East, and there are nefarious actors all across the Middle East. I mean, MBS with Khashoggi, it was a problem. Netanyahu was a problem. The Palestinians are a problem. Hamas is a problem. Hezbollah is a problem. Some factions in Syria are a problem. Iran is a problem, a big problem. And things could stabilize in the region if Iran is eliminated. And forget about, well, it could benefit Israel and all that. Knocking out Iran would benefit us. And guess what? Payback's a bitch. Think about what they've done to our soldiers, the Iranians. They need to pay for it. There needs to be retribution, military retribution. But none of that, knocking out the IRGC and the theocratic regime in Iran would actually help the seculars in the society. Do we deserve the freedoms that we have? Well, the test is happening right now and we're failing.
And concerns about morale and cleanliness, then there have been images at times shared around publicly, and HEGSEP has dismissed it as fake news. So when you hear first fine, as you just heard Priya lay out there, and then see sort of the history of what HEGSEP has said about this, what do you make of the Pentagon's handling of this? And if any of it is normal, if this is, I guess, just sort of par for the course and what happens during a conflict, a war like this one, or if this administration is being less transparent about the reality and the conditions troops are facing than other administrations have been in the past.
Yeah, look, the stress on the forces is significant. You're almost done with 6 months of constant warfare, or certainly constant deployment in the service of warfare in the Middle East. And a lot of these units have been away for an awful long time.
So if you're Putin and you can hire a bunch of North Koreans, maybe he takes the Northern Islands of Japan. It won't be Russian troops, maybe Russian advisors. What's the United States going to do when you have soldiers that are fatigued because of a deployment that seems to be faltering? If you were President Xi, would you think, maybe we should do a blockade around Taiwan? What's the United States going to do? Don't have the munitions. We don't have enough military. We don't have enough Navy equipment to be able to counteract that blockade. What are we going to do then? See, by just kicking the can down the road and not solving the problem in Iran causes a lot of other things. But it's not just military. It's also food. Because you need fertilizer to grow food. And that's primarily coming from molecules. And those molecules from many areas of the world are coming out of the Middle East, AKA oil, natural gas. So all these people, I think, well, we just need to decarbonize our economies, and we need to stop relying on fossil fuels and all that. How are you going to grow food with 8 billion people on the planet? Because the only reason that we have 8 billion people on the planet is because of fertilizer. The only reason.
They don't have the same rotation that they have in conflict situations, and the stress on real soldiers, real troops, real sailors, then trickles back to their families. They hear about it. It's a significant concern for the military community. Now, this is war, and a lot of people say you have to just do what you have to do. No question about it. But there is an expectation that during times of conflict, that the Pentagon is focused on the well-being of the force, and that they will respond accordingly. So we'll see how Hegseth handles this. Simply just brushing it off and pretending that it doesn't exist may not fly with people who see it in their daily lives or see it through their families. And I think that as this war continues without an obvious end in sight, and these deployments are going to continue, unrelieved for a while, there's going to be demands. Certainly you'll hear on Capitol Hill for a plan for how to address the issues.
Yeah, I'm curious, Kevin, how you see this.
But when this is being promoted, this whole idea that there are problems under the Abraham Lincoln, and there may be, that are above the baseline. Don't know the data. No one knows the data, except the Pentagon. But there is an incentive to promote the story to make it worse than what it really is. Now, we have problems, that's for sure. And I'm very concerned about our military readiness to fight China. And I've been saying that for years. But there's an incentive for MS Now, CNN, these liberal talk shows to over-accentuate the problem, to weaken the Republicans, weaken the president for the midterm elections. So there's a manufacturing of the story here to get some sort of belief system floating around for the midterms. So that's another element to this problem. Who benefits from the story? First, that's how we first do. Who benefits from the story? Well, it's not the sailors, because nothing's going to change anytime soon if there really is a problem. But who really benefits? The Democratic Party during the midterms, because if they can sow the seeds of doubt about our deployment in the Middle East and its efficacy, then the Republican Party might lose. See, so that's an element of this.
So we know the president's strategy right now, at least as described to Axios, is to be low-keying it, essentially sort of slowly dragging things out to try to build up economic pressure on the Iranians. But the reality is the Iranians, in a way, are low-keying it with us as well. They are dragging it out. They understand the economic pressure our country is under. And the difference between the Trump administration and the Iranian regime is they are facing midterms here.
Yes.
The Iranian leaders do not have to deal with democracy at home and the voters' will and interests. And so I'm curious, when lawmakers see all of this, they hear about the outrage of families, service members doing their best for our country right now, and then also see what their voters, their constituents are dealing with at home at, say, the gas pump. I mean, are they freaking out?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly difficult line for these, particularly Republicans, to walk right now. Look, I've been asking Republicans off and on about the Iran war, the gas prices issue for months now. And I recall that just a few weeks ago when gas prices were once again starting to skyrocket, I pressed a bunch of Republicans, like, how do you explain this? Is this the president's fault? And they were always quick to pivot to blaming someone else. that yes, maybe it's corporations that are doing price gouging. This is Iran's war because we've been fighting them forever. The list goes on, but avoiding blaming the president by any means. But Democrats then have this very easy.
The results are in. Commotion Voice AI is the clear winner in the latest independent blind benchmark. Tested not in demo environments, but under real-world conditions. Commotion out.
But Democrats then have this very easy opening. I mean, they were already building an affordability message as part of their, campaign strategy going back since right after 2024. This bill plays right into it. I mean, it's a very easy, point A to point B. Trump starts the war, your prices are higher. It doesn't take a lot of explanation. It basically fits on a bumper sticker. And in politics, we know that, of course, short sentences do carry the day. One thing I'll add to all of this conversation, though, is Congress is now gone. They're out of town for the next month. So there's not going to be any additional war powers votes, which, by the way, have largely failed. There's not going to be a chance to, have any additional say on, okay, we need to push back on the president. Basically, we're waiting until September. We'll see where the status of the war is then, and what the status of gas prices are. Part of the bet is, at least from Democrats, is that Republicans are going to go home and face their voters over the next couple of weeks. Even if they're not helping the town halls, they're going to be talking to voters.
Waiting town halls?
Well, we don't see many lined up, but at least they're going to be talking to voters because they need to court their vote. And they're probably going to hear an earful about this.
Priya, I want to know what you may be hearing from sources in context about this whole plane swap post-NATO summit. The Washington Post has this new reporting about the intelligence threat, and officials told the Post that the original intelligence came from Israel, and the CIA had doubts about it, actually calling it, quote, low confidence. At the same time, other outlets say that U.S. and Turkish intelligence said that it was credible. What are you hearing?
Yeah, that's right, Antonio. Well, it seems
Why don't we
like
step back and remember 9/11? That number keeps on popping up, doesn't it? All right, 9/11 ushered in a national security state with more power that still exists today. It didn't sunset. Look at the NSA and its surveillance of U.S. citizens and the collection of data. Everyone thinks, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Forgetting that they read 1984. Can you just imagine? What if Trump is on a plane and he has a cabinet on another plane? He switched planes because of this issue. Let's just imagine this. He switches planes, and some of his cabinet members, a few, but not everybody, are on the new plane, and everyone else is on the original plane with the press. And that original plane gets shot down. And the story would be there was a credible threat and we switched planes. And it so happened it was shot down. And Trump still is alive because he's on the second plane and with some staff, but most of his cabinet's gone. It would make 9/11 look like a firecracker. There would be executive power on steroids. Here again is a potential danger that's part of this curse that I'm talking about. Will we see a stronger executive branch with emergency powers, similar to an event like 9/11, but way bigger? I mean, think about it. 9/11 was in 2001. We didn't have this surveillance technology that we have today. You add in AI and real-time tracking and all this stuff. The iPhone wasn't even invented yet. That problem. You can see that this is very similar to when there was a extreme emergency situation in Rome, and the Senate gave absolute authority to solve the problem to the protector, turn him into an emperor with absolute power. We're gonna have something similar? Yeah, well, there's gonna be some checks and balances through Congress. But because you're in a war situation, an emergency situation, you're talking about DEFCON 1 type stuff. DEFCON 2. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Was this a dry run for something bigger? Or what happens when they actually take down a Trump plane that Trump's on, and J.D. Vance ends up becoming president of the United States with emergency powers? All the people that hate Trump are going to be happy. But the bigger problem here is that there will be emergency powers to J.D. Vance. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
The sources are saying that all of these threats were generated from Israel, but regardless of whether or not the CIA thought that it was enough for it to be, you know, a credible, imminent threat on the president's life, you have to look at what the actions of the White House and the Secret Service were, which was, of course, to put him in this decoy plane and then fly the older Air Force One and the new Qatari model onwards to the United Kingdom and the United States. So there's a lot of questions about exactly what the threat was. We're hearing that it's a shoulder-fired missile that was the exact cause that prompted him to switch planes. Also, where that information is coming from, which we're hearing is from Israel, and whether or not the CIA thought that it rose to the level of actually, you know, getting him to get off of the Air Force One, which is what in fact actually happened, Antonia.
Priya, Kevin, Peter, thank you all so much for your great reporting, and good to see you.
Now the renovations for the White House cost $900 million, mostly from taxpayers, according to a report. I just want Trump to fix the problems that he set in motion and just stop playing around with everything and just have some peace. But, you know, he's got so many irons in the fire and everything's going to collapse and we're going to have a chaotic attraction and things are going to get bad. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support the work that I do. I think I give a very unique perspective. Let me give you an example. For individuals that were listening earlier in the broadcast, I said, watch the dashboard for the future market for CL. That's the WTI future for oil. It's trading at 81.50 right now. But when I was mentioning it, I said it's testing the 79.62 support level and that it may break, it may not. What did it do? It bounced right off of it. And it's now starting to go up. It's starting to go up. And the intraday low for today is 80.09. So it was testing the 79.62 support level. So if you just listen to me, you could make money. Because what you could have done was go, okay, earlier in the session, you could have short WTI as it was approaching the test level, the support level, and then close your position and make some money. And then wait for it to break or bounce. When it bounced, after about 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes later, go in and long, and you would have made money on the down leg and on the long leg. And depending on how many shares you buy, depends on how much money you make. But this is real-time intelligence that's actionable. Who does this? Nobody. Nobody. And link it to what's going on in the news. So it helps support the work that I do, all right? Because you'll make money and you'll get healthy. Who does that? Nobody, other than me. Probiotics, super important. They are the foundation of health. If you have a good gut biome, you can build off of that and you're going to get healthy. Now, I have a powdered version of the probiotics, which I take, or the veggie cap version. Either one, doesn't matter. Take it every day. Drink it with filtered water. Now, by taking these probiotics, it's going to help bring down inflammation at the gut level, improve the lining of the mucosal layer of your gut, increase that. Your IgA concentrations will go up, so your immune system will go up for your gut. By having a strong mucosal layer, food allergies will go down. Because most food allergies are because you have a poor gut. And what happens is some of those proteins that you're eating from the food get into your bloodstream. And then the body says, oh, that protein shouldn't be there. It's a foreign protein and it needs to create an antibody. And then all of a sudden you have an allergy. Or it has to create, some sort of innate immune system reaction. And then when you take the food allergy again, or if you take the food again, voila, you start to have problems. Well, if you have a good gut, you don't have this problem. So when you hear someone that says, I got a lot of food allergies, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, it's almost always that their gut is fucked up. So by taking a good probiotic, you're improving the lining of your gut. You're reducing leaky gut syndrome. So you're reducing food allergies. Because what is leaky gut syndrome? Leaky gut syndrome means that whatever is being digested in the gut eventually gets into the bloodstream. You want to stop that. With a good gut, it's going to communicate with your liver and your brain better. Yes, your gut communicates. And by that communication with that gut biome, you're going to be able to sleep better. You're going to have deeper sleep, longer lasting sleep. And when you have deeper and longer lasting sleep, you're detoxifying your central nervous system. Now, if you're detoxifying your central nervous system more often, don't you think that your neurons in your brain are going to be healthier? The answer is yes. And when you have deeper sleep, you're consolidating memory. When you're consolidating memory, don't you think your neural networks, especially in your hippocampus, are going to improve? Yeah. And when you have a better communication between your gut and your liver, your metabolism will improve. Your ability to control your lipids will improve. The ability to control your glucose levels will improve. You ever wonder why people are so fat in America? People would say, well, it's just eating McDonald's. That's part of the reason. It's actually what you're eating drives up these glucose levels and high, fat content, high lipid levels, but also it disrupts your gut biome, which is a positive feedback loop, making you fatter and fatter and fatter. But if you get a better gut biome and you stop eating the crap, then you get healthier. But what we hear is we need to spend more money on healthcare. We need to make sure that we have Medicare for all. We have to have a one payer system. Really? Maybe what we need is to tell everybody, look in the mirror. The reason why you're unhealthy most of the time in the United States is because of your own fault, and that you need to do something about it. And that society shouldn't have to pay for the poor life choices that one made. It means self-reliance and taking self-responsibility. Ooh, that sounds like a conservative. That sounds like the Enlightenment. DrPaulCottrell, you don't believe in the postmodern ethos. No, I don't. Self-determination, self-reliance, take responsibility. That's what's going to move the society forward, not Medicare for all. Get healthy. You got to take charge of your own health because a physician doesn't give a shit. Nobody's going to care about your health other than you. So it's up to you. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotics, all right? It starts at the gut. And maybe we solve the obesity problem in America. Magnesium and zinc. This is going to help with brain function and also the immune system. A lot of people have too much inflammation and their immune system goes down. And so they get sick all the time and they age faster. And they're less productive. And they take off from work and they want more money, but yet they're less productive. Again, looking in the mirror and being self-reliant and taking responsibility is part of being an adult. Please go to my store and get the magnesium and zinc. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 because I'm a nice guy. You get $5 off.
Try imagining a place where it's always safe and warm. Come in, she said, I'll be out. Show the fun song.
At FlexJet, we've built a state-of-the-art operations control center with an international fleet of private jets and helicopters. That's why we're
reporting on the ballooning price tag for President Trump's construction projects in the White House. The Washington Post reports the Trump administration is set to spend at least $900 million. The majority of that for the new ballroom complex, but also includes the new helipad and a new visitor screening center. That number is primarily taxpayer dollars, which the president, of course, once said would not be spent on the ballroom. Complicating the money trail, the Post finds the administration is moving some funds through an obscure office called the Executive Residence, which is normally used for housekeeping and repairs on the residential side of the White House. Washington Post investigative reporter Jonathan O'Connell's on the byline, joins me now. Jonathan, so just walk us through your reporting on this. How much of this $927 million, according to the reporting by you, is going to projects that could be considered necessary and might have been undertaken no matter who's in the White House, compared to how much is going to President Trump's personal priorities like the ballroom, the new helipad, the Rose Garden revamp, the list goes on?
Oh, sure. I think the White House Visitor Center has been envisioned for a number of years. Previous administrations have talked about it, and there's been some planning around it. The centerpiece of this, of course, the East Wing, where President Trump would like to have a new ballroom. There have been discussions previously about whether the East Wing needs upgrades or could have a larger ballroom. The issue here really is that he just knocked it down without a plan that Congress had seen and without any funding that Congress had at least intentionally provided for it. So now he's somewhat locked up in court over whether he can continue going because he did this sort of workaround with Congress.
And how much of this is it known is taxpayer money, and are there any restraints on how it's actually used?
So this $927 million, Anderson, is the best tally we have. Of that, we can see around $305 million appears to be donations, private donations, and the president has said repeatedly that the ballroom portion of the East Wing will be paid for by private donations. Sometimes he's left out the reality that the rest of the East Wing is going to be paid for by the public. And we can see, again, like these large transfers of money by the budget office that are coming from the Secret Service, from the White House military office, that are, they've been appropriated money by Congress, still unclear what the sources of them are, but beyond that.
Is there any historical precedent for renovation?
Now, there's a lot of underground construction that is happening in this area of the White House. This is setting up for a larger executive branch. Yes, they need a ballroom to help with security. It's ridiculous that the White House doesn't have a large ballroom for dignitaries. So we need that. But there's a larger issue here. What's happening underground? They're setting up for a larger executive branch. Now, why would you need a larger executive branch unless something's going to happen where there's emergency powers and the executive branch needs to grow. Hence, I'm very concerned about the curse that's coming.
In and around the White House at this scope and this expense?
Man, Anderson, you got to go back a pretty long way. I mean, in 2008, 2009, under George W. Bush and President Obama, we had some upgrades to really like infrastructure of the building. So it is a very old building, you know, like the lighting, HVAC, electrical, that sort of thing. Other than that, you got to go back to President Truman, because at that time, a significant portion of the White House was really almost falling apart, and there was an expensive at the time renovation. But even that, like previous presidents, when they want to make, or previous administrations, when they want to make upgrades to the White House, the People's House, they make a proposal, they send their people to Congress to ask for money, and the Congress debates whether to provide it or not and how they can provide it. And then they use that money and go out and contract for companies to build it. And they just have skipped so many of those steps here.
Has the White House responded to your report?
Yes, again, they're standing firm on the idea that the ballroom, specifically within the East Wing, will be paid for by private donations. And they say that their transfers of this money that has been appropriated by Congress will be spent and is being spent according to Congress's original intent, without necessarily saying where the money is from and how much they're planning to spend at all.
Jonathan O'Connell, as always, great reporting. Thank you so much.
Sarah, start with you. Obviously, you spent time at the White House in this administration previously. What do you think about this? I mean, this cannot be good for Donald Trump.
Well, let me just say that it seems like Trump missed his true calling, which was to be First Lady or First Gentleman, so he could actually take the time to focus on these types of pet projects of decorating the White House. But instead, he's President of the United States. These should not be his priorities, but spending almost $1 billion on this is not what voters signed up for, especially when we're facing an affordability crisis. Voters don't want to see him like playing with these pet projects and the designs of the new ballroom and all of these things. And the main issue here is too that he's focusing on this instead of other issues facing our country. He's also stealing taxpayer money to pay for it and funneling it from other funds. And one of those being the Secret Service. He's taking over $400 million in funding that was appropriated by Congress for Secret Service to hire and train new agents. So it's just appalling to me that this is what he's doing. He should be going through the process of getting Congress to appropriate these funds for these renovations. He tried and he failed, and now he has to steal it from other funds for the taxpayers.
You know, I think we've seen the result of it. I mean, many times the Trump administration is giving out no-bid contracts to donors and friends of the family, etc. We saw how that worked with the reflecting pool. Isn't that what it's called? The big reflecting pool. I mean, you give out contracts to people who are ill-equipped to do the work necessary.
It's not just the reflecting pool. It's the ballrooms. It's the ballroom. It's also the helipad. It's the Rose Garden, the golf. I mean, there's a huge number of projects here.
I don't know what happens to conservatism. I mean, I remember when Republicans.
I don't know what happens to separation of powers. At some point, Congress is going to have to reassert its role in our democracy. But it's not going to happen under the current circumstances. And I also have an issue with this taste. You know, I live in DC, and all that yellow gold stuff is gaudy. It's happy. Now you live in Virginia. That's true. Thank you. Good point. But I work in DC. I don't mean to fact check. And no, I get corrected. But you know, all that yellow gold everywhere, it's tacky. And
and he's also out of touch because it's a slap in the face to voters who are dealing with affordability.
Just briefly, Scott, who should replace Caroline Leavitt? Obviously, she is stepping down. And
are you throwing your hat in the ring?
Yeah, well, first of all, you're throwing your hat in the ring.
Will you serve, Scott? Answer the question.
No, look.
Answer the question.
I don't know, but I'll tell you this: Caroline Leavitt has been maybe the greatest White House press secretary in the last 30 years, at least. She's been nothing short of brilliant. She's done it while raising a young family. I think it's great that she's going to go spend time with her family, but I don't know a single Republican in the country who isn't in all of and in appreciation of Caroline tonight. So Godspeed on your journey back to your family. You've done great.
Do you want the job or not?
Let me help Scott. Democrats are afraid of Scott Jennings becoming press secretary. There you go. Now you got the job.
You remind me of my Obama renovated the complex, $376 million, which is about $570.
Didn't use as much gold. Didn't use as much
I'm just
gold.
saying, it's not unprecedented for presidents to spend a few $100 million renovating the White House complex.
But some presidents would knock down the East Wing without telling anyone.
Well, it'll be better when it's done.
The Washington Post has a really smart story out. Speaking of Secret Service needing to keep the president safe, they're reporting the Trump administration is planning to use millions from Secret Service funding to pay for the construction of White House projects like the ballroom, the helicopter pad, so on and so forth. Washington Post says the administration planning to spend at least $900 million, $500 million of it coming from the Secret Service and White House military office. I know that's not how Congress appropriated it. OMB can do a lot of things, it turns out. There's a lot of gray area there, and they figured all that out. What's your read on it?
Well, first off, the reason OMB can figure that out is because Congress is unwilling to exert its own authority. That's the key. And the founders of the Constitution of this country always assumed there'd be somebody like Donald Trump that would come along. They never assumed that Congress would so willingly give up its power. What they're planning to do, I'm guessing, is to use this budget and then come to Congress later and say that they have to worry about security of the president and everybody else, and they need more money to cover that. And Congress will be like, well, sure, we want to keep the president safe. Now, also keep in mind, they have pulled Secret Service protection and other protection from former administration officials. They did this all within like the first month. You think of John Bolton and others, Mike Pompeo, they pulled protection from them. Even members of their own administration. They play games with this. And I think Congress needs to stand up and say, no, you can't do it. And if Congress does that, they can stop it from happening. That won't happen.
Yeah, fingers crossed though. That's how we're doing that. It's a super important point. Don't blame OMB, don't blame Roscoe, don't blame the administration. They're doing what they can because Congress is abdicating their responsibility.
Great.
Trump and the executive branch and future presidents need a ballroom, for sure. But there's something bigger happening, and that is an expansion of the executive branch. Why would you need that unless something big's coming? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. Get rid of that brain fog. It'll allow you to concentrate on tasks. And over time, what will happen is that you're going to have better memory and faster recall. You'll be thinking faster. The reason why is that it will help improve that positive neuroplasticity. So those dendritic connections between the neurons will be denser. You'll be having a better neural network and better brain function. This is a great neural stack that you should be taking every day. Turmeric soaks up free radicals, brings down inflammation. Ashwagandha root controls cortisol levels and blood glucose levels. And lignans soaks up free radicals, brings down inflammation, helps the immune system and the endocrine system. You can take them separately, but I highly recommend that you take them together. They're synergistic. And what's going to happen is you're going to have better brain function, you're going to have better cardiovascular health, your immune system and your endocrine system will be better. This is a very powerful stack right here. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And lastly, lozenges. The structural nanosilver lozenges help to neutralize and help to protect that oral pharynx. They're perfect for the allergy season, the cold season, and if you're cleaning around the house or in the yard. You can get it in Orange Splash and Manuka honey. So please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver lozenges, get a few bags for your household. You never know when you need them. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Let's listen into Bloomberg here.
Some individual stock ideas. So I'm looking through your list. Okay, so Caterpillar, CAT, that one kind of stands out to me. Why is that on your list? Big company.
Yes, absolutely. And so, this is actually one of my favorite stocks to talk about. So everyone's talking about AI, and we are all in on AI, and we'd like a diversified portfolio, almost like a mini portfolio of AI. And so people don't immediately think Caterpillar when they think about AI. And so AI doesn't live in the cloud. It lives in this enormous physical buildings that really kind of consume a lot of this energy, right? And so Caterpillar is really compelling because it really allows participation in AI infrastructure, and it creates kind of like this demand for generators and turbines and equipment for the support for the support for like the data centers.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the unusual suspects, right? So outside of your Microsofts, Nvidias, all of that, what is, who is building that infrastructure?
So it's interesting, is this for a derivative play? A lot of investors are looking for derivative plays for AI. So, and they're thinking picks and shovels in addition to the chip manufacturers. Schneider Electric, it's a French company. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so again, these data centers require a huge amount of power to kind of make them go. And so Schneider Electric is a global leader in energy management, electrification. And so that's why we like it. And so it's really, and not just in France, globally. So it's really kind of participating in that AI spend.
Where are you finding value outside of the AI space?
Yeah, so technology in general, but then also we like financials. And again, how we manage things is we typically manage our clients' entire portfolio. We do so with institutions, and so we like to take a forward satellite approach. But in these themes that we're leaning into, we like to diversify. So on financials, which is an area that we like JP, we like Goldman for their diversified business model. But then we also like to add something like a KKR or an Apollo that really allows retail investors to kind of participate in private market revenue without having to actually participate in private markets. So it kind of like rounds out that portion of the portfolio.
What are you guys doing in the fixed income market these days? Because I can clip some very nice coupons these days.
You can. I think for the first time in a long time, fixed income is really kind of doing its job, which we love. And so when we think about how we kind of construct the fixed income portion of our portfolio, we still like a core and satellite. So we like to do so with funds, right? We don't really want to kind of bet on the yield curve. So we're taking short, middle, and long. And then we're also kind of layering that in. We like to run a 4++ strategy. So traditional kind of Barclays Ag, but then kind of adding a little bit of high yield, a little bit of opportunistic credit.
Bloomberg Ag.
Oh, you know what? You are correct. I'm showing my old school. I started at Merrill Lynch like so long ago.
But I think
you are correct.
I saw Mike walking down the hall.
I am in the Bloomberg building. The Bloomberg Ag. Yes, thank you for that correction.
So that works. I mean, it's
so good.
Just good coupons this year. I see how high yield and leveraged loans are actually the best performing fixed income space here.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to take that credit risk here.
So you don't, and I think it's really important to think about, what are you investing for, and what's your time horizon. So our clients, our institutions, it's always long term. But to your point, you don't necessarily have to do that right now, right? And of course, bonds are always are really right now a good diversifier to equities in a way that I don't think that they have been in a while.
All right, Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming into our studio. Tiffany McGee, she's the CEO and CIO at Pivotal Advisors. Again, here the market's kind of mixed here. We got the Dow kind of moving down a little bit, but the S&P kind of holding on to those gains. And I'm keeping an eye on oil. We're coming off of those lows here. We're off about 3 or 4% here now, only off less than 1%. So oil kind of coming back here, and it just kind of goes to the rhetoric of what's out there, and that rhetoric changes many times throughout the day. So now we're hearing some little bit tougher talk out of that part of the world. We're seeing that directly in WTI crude oil, now down 76 cents, $82. So that was the play there. Coming up, we're going to be taking a look at some more of these markets here again.
I'm going to go to Fox Business. They're talking, I think, to Newt Gingrich, and he's warning about impeachment. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the vitamin D3. This is dual purpose. It helps with gene expression. It's a gene expression cofactor, so your cells perform properly. It'll help with your immune system, help with your cardiovascular system, and help with bone density. It stacks really well with K2 and K7. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now let's listen into what Newt has to say.
This might be the only delivery service that actually feels chef-made, because it is. This is Cookimini, and if you're someone that enjoys delicious food without having to worry about
primary elections wrapping up across 6 states this week, and Democratic Socialist candidates are not faring as well as the polls said. In Wisconsin, Francesca Hahn losing the state's gubernatorial primary, while progressive Abdul El Sayed only narrowly winning Michigan's Democratic Senate primary. Far-left progressive Twitch streamer Hassan Piker, meanwhile, cannot even believe that Hahn lost, blaming older voters, whining about it, saying this: the knives will be out in future races. Piker campaigned with Hahn and with El Sayed. Joining me now is the 50th Speaker of the House, former Georgia Congressman and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. Newt, good morning. It's always great to speak with you. And, I think, you call these socialist values off-putting, to say the least. But these messages are resonating with these younger voters. What's your take on this?
Well, let me say, first of all, that when even Bernie Sanders and AOC refused to endorse Hahn, it may have been a sign that even by their standard, she was too crazy to be allowed to be the nominee, because she would have defined the Democratic Party in the entire upper Midwest. Having said that, I think you're in a period where younger people who have gone through schools that are taught them that socialism is good, constant effort to convince them that socialism somehow is nice and pleasant and positive. You have a real sense, I think, that the economy has failed. There's a very high percentage of young people who are still living with their parents, cannot afford to go buy a house. You also have the fact we graduated several million people who took degrees for which there are no jobs. So you go to Yale or Harvard or Princeton, Columbia, you get this great degree, you go out on the street, and you find out you earn about the same amount if you are working, for Amazon as in whatever profession you've chosen. So there's a great sense that the contract they thought they had with the country isn't working. Now, the problem they have is that big government socialism doesn't work. That doesn't work in Cuba. It didn't work in the Soviet Union. We know of no place where, in fact, it has successfully worked. Furthermore, the weird values that are attached to it. I run a project called America's New Majority Project, and we've been doing polling since 2018. The number of Democrats who are committed to 10, 15, 20% issues is just astonishing. And the easiest one is whether or not men should be in women's sports and in women's locker rooms. The country's pretty decisive on that. The Democratic Party is very confused about it. So that's the sort of thing where I think in the general election, they're going to have a very hard time.
And maybe that is why, to your point, Bernie Sanders and AOC did not get behind a Francesca Hahn, because they knew that in the general there was going to be an issue. Absolutely. House and Senate Republicans have centered some midterm messaging around affordability, the tax cuts, the big beautiful bill, all part of the president's agenda. What are you hearing ahead of the midterms right now? What do you think should be top of mind for the Republicans in order to keep the House and the Senate?
Look, I think it's a very simple election. If this is about two teams, and which team do you trust to create a better future, the Republicans are going to win by a big margin, because the Democratic team, just as with George McGovern or Michael Dukakis or Walter Mondale, or what we did in '94 with the contract with America, once it's a team sport, the Democrats are going to disintegrate because they can't defend themselves. And you take their issue positions, and they are not acceptable to most Americans. But the challenge for Republicans is, first of all, to tell the story. I mean, how many families now have?
The problem is, Newt, and this is what we're seeing in New York, the youth vote and the ultra-liberal adult vote is galvanized to make sure that they show up at the ballot box. And they're voting for these DSA type candidates, either DSA heavy or DSA light candidates. There's a metastasizing that's taking place around the country. It's a big problem. So once they get into office, then people start getting all pissed off. But the damage is already done. And I don't know why, but there's this mindset with these with
the citizens that vote for the DSA type candidate, that they're not paying attention to other areas of the country, and those DSA policymakers are failing. So they vote them in, then they realize in their local community that the DSA policymakers are failing, and now they have to backtrack, but they can't backtrack until the next election. Another thing that's really important is that the youth vote, especially from the college towns, they're galvanized to help with the campaign. They're more organized. The Democratic Party, even though I'm against the Democrat overall platform, the Democrats, you have to give credit when credit's due. The Democrats are more organized. You look at the Republican Party, and it's hard to get them moving in the same direction. Now, yes, there's factions going on in the Democratic Party that's weakening them. There are also factions that are happening in the Republican Party that's weakening the Republican Party, but not as great compared to the fracturing that's taking place between middle of the road established Democrats versus the DSA establishment now. But the Democrats, either the DSA or the establishment, they're organized. Their policies suck, but they're organized. The Republicans, their policies are better for the country. Not great, but better. But they're disorganized. They can't get anything done. This is why people get pissed off, even if they're Republican. And they get so pissed off, sometimes they will vote for a middle-of-the-road Democrat. So this is the problem. The Republican Party needs to get organized.
$1,000 savings account for their child because of Donald Trump. How many people who work for tips are not paying taxes because of the Republicans? How many people who are in Social Security are no longer paying taxes because of the Republicans? Republicans have to do a much better job of communicating the hundreds of...
Let me get this straight. The Trump accounts to allow for the youth to invest in, be part of the capitalist investor class, I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea. But it wasn't really with Trump. It was really with the donation from Dell, Michael Dell, and his foundation. I think it's through the foundation. But either way, he donated money, and other people did too, that were working with Michael Dell. But the tax on, no tax on tips, yeah, it helps the people that are in jobs that are related to tips. But maybe we should focus on creating jobs that don't require someone getting a tip. Maybe we should have higher paying jobs, better paying jobs. See, the point that I'm making here is that the Republican Party, it's like they're showing middle-class America, see, we're doing something for you. But look at what they did for the rich billionaires. Now, I'm a capitalist. I'm a Republican. I prefer a growing economy, less government, lower taxes. But I also believe in this idea that let's stop focusing so much on the low-hanging fruit and focus more on the bigger picture. We need to get the economy where we have many more higher paying jobs instead of having the gig economy, instead of greasing the skids and just reducing taxes on tips. No tax on tip type stuff. That's low-hanging fruit. That should have been done a long time ago.
What's the bigger issue? It's like, how are we gonna create an economy that's 3%, 4% growth annually and have that sustainable and reduce individual debt? How do we do that? Come on, Republicans. See, the way the Republicans work all the time is just like, let's reduce taxes. But okay, that helps middle class, but it also helps in terms of absolute dollars, the rich. Oh, that will heal the super wealthy much more. But the answer isn't the Democrats by saying, let's raise taxes. The answer isn't taking away property. The answer isn't the erosion of your property rights. The answer isn't overspending for these social programs that we can't afford. We're at 100% our GDP or more in debt. Think about that, $40 trillion in debt, and it's gonna grow. And just wait until, what are we gonna do when we have a recession? We haven't had it in a while. Fiscal spending and printing more money at the Fed. That's what happens. So the debt will continue to go up. We don't have the capacity. We do not have the capacity to deal with just a garden variety recession, let alone a deep recession. What about a sustained war that has multiple fronts? We can't afford that either. So how can we afford all these social programs too? We need to bring down the debt, reduce social programs, increase entrepreneurship, lower taxation, but we also need to focus on getting more people working. Our infrastructure needs to be rebuilt. That's a perfect example where we could make the society more productive. When you build infrastructure, the society is more productive. When you have a declining infrastructure, a degrading infrastructure, the society becomes less productive. Can you imagine if we really had high-speed rail where you can go from New York to Detroit or New York to let's say, Houston, Texas in a few hours? Say go to Detroit, let's say high-speed rail, going from Detroit to New York in an hour and a half. Let's say New York to Houston in 3 hours. The society would be humming. It would be working faster. Case in point, look at New York, the 5 boroughs, pre-mass transit, and how the society worked. It was horse and buggy. It was local communities we call villages. These villages would have commerce. It would take a while to go uptown. It would take a while to go downtown. And the speed of the society was much slower. Now you bring in mass transit, even though it's decaying now, but mass transit, and it hums, going up and down Manhattan, or going back and forth between the boroughs much quicker. So commerce is faster. The society is faster. There's more transactions. That's just a microcosm. Can you imagine if you had high-speed rail on higher population centers between them connected? The whole society would hum faster. There would be more transactions. The economy would grow. You're building the infrastructure, that's going to create jobs, but then you have all these secondary and tertiary knock-on effects. Perfect. Helps construction, it helps smaller businesses, and it allows people to traverse between regions measured in hours or sometimes less than an hour. So if you have to work in New York, but you really want to live in, let's say, Pennsylvania, you could easily do it. Or let's say you live in Maine, you want to be fishing with Tucker Carlson, but you work in New York. Take the high-speed rail and you're in New York within an hour and a half. Why not? I mean, other major countries do this, like Japan, like China. So this is a perfect way to actually have a sustainable, growing economy. But we have a lot of stupid people running the show. A lot of stupid people running the show. A lot of lawyers that don't know shit.
They've already done that have improved the lives of people, and we have to keep working on affordability. And my judgment, that means you have to work on healthcare, because healthcare is the biggest single component of affordability. A family of four today, on average, is buying the equivalent of a small car every year just to pay for health insurance. So if you really want to affect affordability, fix the health system, provide for transparency in cost and quality, allow the people to go where the quality is. You'll take an immense amount of cost out, and life will become dramatically more affordable.
Healthcare and all that housing to that, Newt. I do want to ask you this before you go. Senate Budget Committee Chair Ron Johnson, he joined me on the program yesterday on whether or not the Senate can pass his budget blueprint ahead of the midterms. This includes tens of billions of dollars in spending for the military, farm programs, and election integrity measures. Here's what Johnson said to me yesterday. I want you to listen.
Before the midterms is really difficult. We decided collectively between the president, senators and the House members, let's work on a far better reconciliation bill than the skinny one that we brought to us that had no pay for us, and President Trump and his team. Let's do a far better job of providing the support the finest among us deserve in the military, but also do whatever we can using reconciliation to pass some election integrity. The reason we didn't pass the Fifth State America Act isn't because of Republicans, it's because Democrats refuse to vote for any election integrity measure because they want to make it easy to cheat. Go figure.
You know, new Congress is now poised for this post-recess scramble for the month of September. If Democrats win control of Congress in November, they could delay, block, basically kill the president's agenda. It would be impeachment hearings for 2 years.
Look, I think this is the most important off-year election in my lifetime. The difference between having a Republican majority that wants to work on problems and having a Democratic majority that wants to impeach the president, impeach the cabinet, block everything. The difference for America's future between those two approaches is enormous, and that's why we have to communicate that this is a team sport. One team wants to actually solve problems, the other team wants to screw up the country in order to defeat Donald Trump. I think most Americans will regard it as pretty unpatriotic to having screw up the country as your major goal.
Well, Newt Gingrich, your voice is so important as we move in.
Please go to my store at the-studio-reykjavik.com and get the structural nano silver toothpaste. This whitens your teeth, freshens your breath, reduces inflammation at the gum line, helps the health of the gum line, and neutralizes because it has structural nano silver. Use this every day. Get a few tubes for your household. Use the structural nano silver toothpaste every day, but especially during the cold season. Why? Because it neutralizes. And it has no fluoride. You know why it doesn't have any fluoride? Because fluoride makes you stupid. Structural nano silver gel. You can get it in the tube form and the quick dispenser called Renew. It's dual purpose. It will help to heal a wound quicker, about 1/3 of the time quicker. You can use it as a daily skincare. And during the allergy season and the cold season, put it on your hands and around your nostrils.
lightly coat your nostrils. It'll stay active for 5.5 hours. You can't do that with Cottrell. Structural nano silver, max 35, and cleanse. What does it do? It helps to boost up your innate immune system. I've been taking this for over 6 years, every day. Teaspoon a day, every day. Swish in your mouth, gargle, swallow. Really simple. 20 seconds gargle. What it does is it neutralizes and improves your oral cavity and your oral pharynx. Maintains the mucosal barrier and helps the epithelial cells. That way, you're boosting up your innate immune system. And by the way, it helps to neutralize. So it's actually really good during the cold season. Max 35 parts per million. Cleanse, 30 parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. Very simple, very simple. Heirloom barley brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals through superoxide dismutase, and detoxifies your body. So you're improving your immune system, your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system, brain function. You'll recover quicker after a workout. Why is bringing down inflammation, soaking up free radicals so important and detoxifying? Because when you're doing that, your body is now moving towards homeostasis. Let me give you an example. If you're bringing down inflammation at the brain level, if you're soaking up free radicals, don't you think that your neurons are going to be performing better? And if they're performing better, then they're not going to misfold proteins. If they're not misfolding proteins, then you won't be developing as readily amyloidosis. What does that mean, Dr. Paul Cottrell? By taking heirloom barley regularly and keeping inflammation down and soaking up free radicals, you're reducing your chances of dementia. People need to pay attention. If you don't take charge of your own health, no one will. And no one gives a shit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
If I were him, I'd bundle my home and auto and pick up the real victory, savings.
Are you talking about bowling?
No, bundle.
Yes, absolutely, but not in the same way as the US, because the stocks that we have here, the companies listed are more on the infrastructure side, but as you know, we don't have as many, we don't have the hyperscalers, for example, but there's definitely moments that are moving the markets around those stocks, for sure.
Are you concerned, Virginia, about what some people are calling kind of some of these circular type deals where company A invests in company B buys company A's products here? So you think about all the chips. That's got some people kind of scratching their head, I think.
I think it's definitely a risk, and I think it has to be monitored very closely. I think what's really important is the momentum behind what's going on in the real world with the CapEx. We're seeing this unprecedented CapEx boom. And it's the diffusion aspect of it. As you know, the digital Darwinism is on the competitive side, but there's also a lot of benefits. And you're seeing how industrial companies or even some consumer companies are benefiting from all those new technologies. So it has to be watched very closely. And of course, interest rates are key in that environment. And seeing what AI is doing to rates is very, very important.
So the AI CapEx is certainly being a big tailwind for certainly U.S. GDP and to a lesser extent maybe global GDP. But I guess the real question is, are we going to get productivity benefits? Are we going to get returns on investment? I guess that's what the markets are kind of asking right now.
Yes, and it's a very difficult number to look at. Look at all the companies that are using AI. Some of the numbers that we have, and of course their estimated numbers, is that only about 8% of companies who are really investing in AI are seeing a meaningful impact on their P&L. So you have a lot of companies who are trying and not trying, or who are doing it but not really well. That is the productivity lift. But the key thing, I think, that we have to think about starting 28, 29, 30, 31 is the impact on the job market. Because as we know, there's about 420 million people globally who work in those entry-level white-collar jobs, those jobs are going to be impacted massively, and that will come across as productivity gain in the original phase. But of course, what we have to see is, can those people retrain to find other jobs in the workforce in order for the economies to continue to prosper?
Okay, this is the heart of the matter. Virginia Mazenou with us, Jane Foley on deck here, I believe, from London. Virginia, the heart of the matter, which you just voiced perfectly, is they got to go out and find new jobs. We failed at that with textile workers in the Carolinas. The jobs went to Asia, the jobs went to China. Do we need to insert government programs in here as we go along with AI, much as Germany has done over the decades?
You know, that's a really, really good question. I think the effort will have to be coming from multiple areas, maybe government programs, maybe companies' programs to retrain their workforce and help them get to that next job. But the reality is it's going to be very hard to take a teller, for example, in a bank, to become a data scientist overnight, right? And so it's also how we teach the skills. When you have basically machines who have knowledge at low cost that can give you answers, it's the critical aspect of how we have to train new students, if you want, you know, asking the right question, really questioning, etc. And so this is learning how to manage in ambiguous environment, uncertainty, etc. This is new skills. It's not so much about the knowledge itself and the process of learning and being an agile, having an agile mindset.
I just wait till we move to self-driving yourself. You guys know we're talking about HP's self-driving network, right?
Yeah, of course, self-driving network.
Hold on
for a second.
All right, we're going to go to Fox News talking about this movement is being driven by rich white kids. I think they're talking about DSA. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Gladiator Barley. This will bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, detoxify your body, and help to build muscle. Very similar to the benefits that you get from heirloom barley, but it has that extra benefit of building muscle. Do some resistance training, and by building muscle, you're going to also be able to improve your cardiovascular health. Why? Well, if you build calf muscles, you're actually helping with venous return flow back to your heart. By building muscle, you're going to have more concentrations of myokines and BDNF, which are neuroprotective, that will actually help with your brain function. There is a strong correlation between muscle mass when you're older and brain function. Please go to my store and get the Gladiator Barley. Make sure you do some resistance training. You don't have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but if you do resistance training about 3 times a week, your health will improve radically. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It has the minerals and the vitamins that you need. You can use this as your multivitamin, and you get a lot of other supplements that will help to improve your immune system, improve your endocrine system, help with brain function, help with musculature, rev up your metabolism. You'll have a steady burn of energy, and you're going to be able to slow down that aging process. Take this every day. This is super powerful. Take it every day. This is a month supply. And many people, including myself, have noticed that by taking this will reduce migraine headaches. Now, I suffered from migraine headaches going all the way back to being about 5 or 6 years old. And I was amazed when I started taking Boomer Boost. The frequency of the migraines are much less, and the severity of the migraines much less. So you may find when you take these supplements that something that was bothering you all the time just kind of just goes away. But your body is needing something. And you know, everyone's biochemistry is slightly different. My biochemistry is a little bit different than yours. And the other person's is a little different. Not everybody is the same.
But what you will notice is that if you listen to your body, if you pay attention to what your body needs, you can go into the right path of health. It's a holistic approach, taking the proper supplementation, sleeping properly, eating properly, drinking filtered water, staying away from processed foods, more resistance training than cardio. All these people that just do cardio all the time, stupid, absolutely stupid. You want to do more resistance training than cardio, around 70-30 splits, 60-40 splits, somewhere in there. Stretching and balancing exercises that activate that cerebellum, super important. Because if you're activating that cerebellum regularly and you're helping with your kinematics, you'll have better gait when you get older. Building more muscle in your legs will actually increase your longevity. You look at people that are getting older and they have weak legs, they go down faster. They start to age faster. And when something happens like a fall and they break their hip, usually 2-3 weeks later, they're dead. If you have strong bones and you have strong muscle mass, especially in the legs, you live longer. All right, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
We start here. How does the weakest candidate in modern history still get 40% of the vote? Francesca Hong, a holiday-hating Democratic socialist, did not win the Democratic nomination for governor of Wisconsin. Instead, it was establishment-backed David Crowley, in what's being seen as a major win for party leaders and the establishment. But it wasn't really a major win at all. Crowley defeated Hong by less than 1 point. So while, yes, you could choose to see this as proof socialism's summer might be thawing, you wouldn't be choosing to ignore the socialist elephant in the room. An objectively bad candidate, perhaps one of the worst in modern history, got close to winning a race for governor. It was so close that it deserves a closer look, especially when Hong was forecast pretty much to win across the board and pretty handily, once again proving that polling really doesn't prove anything. What's wrong with polling? Something Democrats are apparently grateful for, those errors in polls. As Politico reports, even some progressives are happy about Hong's loss. But a different story from Hong's opponent, who is already pitching this now, moving forward as one big happy tit.
Over the past few months, you've heard a lot of people try to define this election as a battle between the left and the center, between progressives and the establishment, between insiders and outsiders. That narrative misses the entire point of what we're doing. We may not agree on every policy. We may not use the same labels, but we all want safe communities, strong schools, affordable health care, good paying jobs, and a brighter future for all of our children.
No. Hong wants to distinguish herself and the movement, promising that much like her, it will live to dance another day.
We have built something that will change politics forever. The work we have done will be remembered for.
Wait a minute. In a positive light or a negative light? Now, let's assume she meant that in a positive light relative to her perspective. So what she's basically saying is there's going to be a Mao takeover in the United States sometime in the future. Well, I'm concerned about that because that means that your property rights are going to be nullified. You're going to have bigger government. You're going to have nanny state. You're going to have a surveillance state. You're not going to have freedoms. And they want to erode those constitutional rights. No, they don't like those constitutional rights. They want to burn it all down. So what is she saying here?
we need to actually take a look at the history of Mao. So after this show, make sure you go to YouTube and start really paying attention of the history of Mao in China and how he slowly took it over. Because this is the Red Book.
We have built a beautiful, multi-generational, multi-partisan, multi-racial working class movement.
But for a movement that prides itself on being for the working class and being built on diversity.
Doesn't it sound like the hammer and the sickle? That's what I hear. The hammer and the sickle. Go after the bourgeoisie. Take their property. The hammer and the sickle. That's what she's saying. Now, America's somewhat lucky that she didn't elevate, but there is a canary in the gold mine here. The problem, what Mondani is doing in New York is metastasizing across the country.
DSA is really being driven by just one group, rich, white kids. Let's take a closer look over at the wall. Let's start in Dane County. Dane County includes the city of Madison, which is home to the state's largest university. There, Hong nabbed the county by 7 points.
Now, you know, if you're a business owner, and you're hiring new grads from different universities across the country, stop hiring these individuals that are coming from Madison. Hell, stop hiring them if they're coming from the U of M. They're nuts. They are nuts. Start asking questions in the interview, you know, tangential questions like property rights, you know, constitutional freedoms. Do you really want to hire a communist? If you're a business owner, do you really want to hire a communist? Of course not, because you may lose your business.
County. The town of the same name is home to the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. Hong dominated here by 13 points. And then there's the college town of Menominee. I'm not sure I'm saying the Wisconsin names right. It's very foreign to me from Texas. But Menominee is in Dunn County. And that's where Hong finished up by 7 points. Much different story when you look elsewhere in the state. Crowley saw some of his biggest successes in Metro Milwaukee, both in Milwaukee County and high-income suburban Waukesha County. So he did better in urban and minority-driven counties versus the college-educated white counties of Wisconsin. Crowley also did well, by the way, in rural Wisconsin. He's won there by 4 points, demonstrating once again the DSA voter is still the highly educated, downwardly mobile, primarily white kid. And Hassan Piker wants them to know he blames himself, not them, for the loss.
The guy who's like, I really like Francesca Hong's policies, but I'm also a stupid guy who in his diapers. And I will be Soylent Green one day because I'm so dumb. It's like pundit brain. I can't do it. I can't. You're gonna catch me voters. I don't like voters. It's always our fault. It's always the campaign's fault. It's always our fault. We didn't try hard enough. Okay? We didn't try hard enough. We didn't try hard enough. That's what happened. That's what happened. We should try harder.
So, what is trying harder for Piker? It's more of the same old threats.
We'll be able to lead into their victories. So it'll be less difficult. It'll be easier to deliver our message. It'll be more difficult, though, because the establishment will not underestimate us. They will continue to undermine us.
Piker is dangerous. People need to start pushing back. If you want to save your constitutional freedoms, you want to make sure that you have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, not top-down communism. Piker needs to be pushed aside. People need to fight back. The problem is that conservatives are so busy trying to support their family and just, growing their business or whatever, or working. They don't have time to deal with this dipshit. But this guy literally wants to destroy our country. Now, I have a problem with that. Why, Dr. Paul Cottrell, do you have a problem with that? Well, I think that having a constitutional republic is really important.
Will not underestimate us. So the knives will be out.
What? The knives will
Be
be
sure
out?
to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and
See?
catch full shows
It's all-
streaming
it's-
now on Fox 1.
It's these people, they want to destroy the country. And they are going to get, they're going to get galvanized, they'll get organized, and they will start burning down the town. There'll be some event, something similar to Floyd, or something to deal with BLM, or something, some supercharged event, and then bam, there's conflict, there's rioting. They want it. They want to burn down the town. They want to destroy the country. And it's sad. It's sad. But you know what? The United States probably needs a civil war. A kinetic civil war, not a political voter ballot civil war, not civil war light. A real civil war. Whoever wins, wins. But we can't allow this to take hold. Bullshit. That's what it is. Bullshit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen will help with your skin, help with your nails and your hair. It also helps with musculature, bone density. So please go to my store and get the collagen. It'll also help with joint health. Now, if you have pain, like muscle pain, a bruise, or a sprain, tension headaches, arthritis, use the Super Strong Relief. You rub this in the area of the pain, and within 90 seconds, you get that relief. Now, it's temporary, but it's a great way to relieve pain. And it's very effective and high quality. Collagen. Now, if you have a sports injury for a joint or arthritis, you can remodel it. Now, collagen will help you to repair that joint. It blocks inflammation by blocking EP4. It blocks the erosion of the joint by blocking MMP3 and MMP13. And it helps to recruit the material that you need to remodel the cartilage and remodel the cushioning of the joint. It also blocks the pain gatekeeper NAV 1.7. It's a very effective way to help over time to remodel the joint. Now, another thing that you would like to do is you can stack the Super Strong Relief to relieve the pain, and then as you're remodeling the joint, you won't need the Super Strong Relief as often because your pain starts to eliminate. Another thing that's really important is to create micro signals to remodel the joint, and that is to do these exercises where if you have an elbow issue, you open up the joint up to the point of pain, either if you are extending or flexing, because those are two different movements. But whichever movement causes you the pain, go up to the point of pain and a little bit beyond that. Count to 30 seconds, then release, rest, and then do that again. Do that 3 times and do that every day. And what you will notice, creating this microsignaling, is that you will be able to slowly open up the joint more without pain. Because you're taking the collagen and it's remodeling the joint, the cartilage and the cushioning. And for those moments where your arthritis is bothering you, use the super strong relief to relieve the pain as you are remodeling that joint. Another thing that you can do is take the collagen with the collagen and collagen. The collagen has the building blocks that help remodel the joint. Collagen helps use those building blocks to remodel the joint and reduce the erosion and reduce the inflammation. So this is a great stack if you have arthritis or sports injury. Take the collagen, take the collagen, and for those times where the pain is too much for you, apply this on the joint and you'll get the temporary relief. It's fast acting. But over time, you'll be able to have less pain and more articulation. The faster you do this, the better off you are. Because if you have a problem with a joint and you have that inflammation over the years, it's just eroding the joint more and more. So it takes longer to reheal it. Now, if some people let it go and don't rehabilitate the joint, that inflammation and that erosion of the joint and that cartilage could be bone to bone, and now you have to have surgery. You don't want surgery. Surgery has lots of complications. So if you catch it early, you won't have to have all these downstream problems. So the longer it's been festering, the longer it's going to take to heal. But it can be done. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I've given you lots of information on how to improve your health. You don't need Medicare for all. You don't need to be over-reliant on a physician. All you need to do is look in the mirror and say, there are ways to actually improve your health. And in the process, you'll actually live longer and have more vitality, more longevity. You'll have a more lively life. You will be moving around more. What are some of the problems with aging? Low energy levels, achy bones, immune system is down, poor memory, bad cardiovascular health, problems with digestion. Everything that I have said targets all these major vectors of aging. And you slowly improve your health. And there are dividends. If you do this regularly, there's a compound effect that happens. And voila. Fast forward to 10 years or 20 years, and your methylization of your genes are more of a youthful methylization profile called epigenetics. That your epigenetics would be of a youthful profile than of your peer group that didn't do it. And these moments in time, there are these milestones in your life, chronologically roughly, where there's hypermethylization of genes. So, but if you're taking these supplements and you do this before those key milestone gates of methylization, you're radically changing your epigenetic profile to a more youthful profile. And some of these things you can use for your pet, like a cat or a dog. The Max 35 is a great way to improve their innate immune system and their digestion. The heirloom barley or the gladiator barley is a great way to help to bring down inflammation for your pet. Soak up those free radicals, detoxify their body. And if you have a pet, stop buying the processed food. Cook real human food for your pet. You will notice if you have a dog or a cat, especially the dogs, because dogs age faster, dogs will age slower if you give them C60, Max 35, M&M, MNM, or NAD+, and the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley, and give them human food. And they will have an epigenetic profile of a more youthful existence. And you'll notice that their hair, their coat is healthier, their energy levels are healthier. This stuff works. It's not hard. There's lots of people out there that want to make things hard. No, things have less crap in your life, simplify. And when you do that, you're going to have a better life. Thank you for listening and have a nice day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 so you save some money because CPI and PPI is too damn high. For the ones that don't know, that means inflation. So discount 5, use it, save some money, and take these supplements that will help to improve your health. Now, in terms of improving your finances, pay attention to what's going on with the AI bubble. It's going to burst. Now, right now, the S&P 500 is trading at 7,786. But things might get a little bubbly at about 7,800 or 8,000. What's going to happen if there's some downward revision on NVIDIA or some issue with OpenAI or Anthropic? Anthropic just bought or is in the process of buying or just bought a company dealing with modeling, AI modeling of more realistic AI modeling of environments using physics. So kind of like a reality, almost like a reality engine, like Unity 3D, using physics. All right, so they're buying this company. So what Anthropic's doing is it's like, well, we need these other tangential things to kind of boost up this $1 trillion valuation, even though their revenues don't even come anywhere near $1 trillion. And not too long ago, maybe about 15 weeks ago, they were valued at $380 billion. Well, what transpired 15 weeks from $380 billion to $1 trillion? It's a house of cards. That's what's happening. But that doesn't mean it can't keep on going up until it doesn't. So be prepared. Be prepared for that. And lastly, oil has been trading a little bit up since it tested that 79.62 support level, and it's now trading at 82.31. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.